Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. We may have other people joining us, but it is, coming up on trade show season, which is part of the reason that we're doing this now. So there's a lot of people out for various reasons. All right, so while we are waiting, if you wanted to, of course, we've got a really small group today, so if you want to just talk about it, or you can put it in the chat. What is your biggest challenge with trade shows? And these are some that people have mentioned to us. There may be others that we didn't put on the list, but there's a lot of things that go into trade shows. There's a lot of give and take, a lot of pros and cons. It's kind of a big topic. So I just wanted to start with where we're all coming from so that we're addressing everybody's biggest concerns first.
Well, if it's a large trade show, how do you stand out from the crowd?
Ah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Because you've got hundreds or, at least several other people there. How do you stand out, especially if you offer similar services to what they do? So how do you make them say you're the one, not competition?
Right. And in the aviation industry, Dana, I know you're familiar with this. It's really easy to get lost when you're competing with the shiny objects, especially the big shiny objects, the Gulfstreams and the Honda Jets. And, some of these big companies bring in, I know Honda Jet last year literally brought in a robot that did like a live show every hour on the hour. And, so everybody's flocking to the Honda booth to see this robot dance and do tricks and, wanted to interact with it and everything else. So there are always bigger, cooler companies, I'm going to say, that can upstage your presence at a trade show. So that's an excellent one, Stella. Anybody else have any thoughts, comments, or anything else?
Ours is definitely how do you get more people to come to the booth, right? That's always the thing, rather than standing out in the middle of the aisle and trying to corral them.
Okay, yeah, exactly. That is a good.
Not that I haven't done that, but
we actually have and I'll tell you the story now because while we're kind of waiting, we had a magician. We had hired a magician for a trade show. And he actually was doing card tricks and things and could not get anybody to come to our booth because, of course, there was the Honda Jet with the robot and everything else. All of that was going on. And Stella, yes, there is a PDF for the workshop. There's a link in the appointment. Hopefully, you got that. If not, I will put it right now into the chat.
I was just going to say, we probably want to put it in the chat so it's there if somebody needs it.
Exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is a very good thing to be doing. So let me get that really quickly. Yeah, anybody? Okay, so we hired this, to continue the story, we hired this magician and everybody was walking by him, and he's doing card tricks and all these things and he's just being ignored. Because of all this crazy noise at this trade show and all the shiny objects and all the wonderful things going on. So what he ended up doing was taking the deck, one of his decks of cards, and he had a whole bunch of decks of cards. And we had our client's logo, of course, on the back of these cards. And he did the 52 card pickup in the middle of the aisle. He basically just sprayed cards everywhere. And he actually sprayed them into the side of some poor guy's head, just fire hose of playing cards. And so then everybody stopped to help him pick up these cards. And then he started doing card tricks to the people that were gathered around while all this was happening. And then once you start gathering a crowd, then everybody stops to see what's going on. And so there's a lot of activity. So sometimes it's just a matter of getting one person to stop, then everybody will stop. So that's a thing. Anybody else have any experience with that, or anybody else want to comment on what their biggest problem is with trade shows while I grab the URL for this and put it in the chat window?
Paula, this is Trent. I think one of the issues is just determining what are the right trade shows to go to. It's huge investment for the company in time and talent and sending people places to make sure that are you in front of the right customers, the right prospects.
Right. That is absolutely a problem because, last time we used to actually do a calendar, like a wall calendar that had all the trade shows on it. We can't do that anymore because there are so many that, there's a lot of them happening on the same day and, it just got unwieldy. And so, there are so many events. They proliferated a lot over the last 5 years. Excellent. Excellent point. Anybody else have a favorite from these? What is your biggest challenge with trade shows? I guess number 4 came from a question we had from a client who would just be exhausted at the end of every show. She's just like, I just can't do shows anymore because I'm so worn out by the end of the show that I can't even function. And, by the last day of the show, she was just, and I get that because, you have to be up all the time. You have to be on your game. You have to be talking to people. And, for some of us that are introverts, or closet introverts, that can be really, really hard to keep your energy going the whole time. All right. I guess we can move on if everybody's had an opinion on that. We'll spend some time on how to choose the right shows, how to get people to come to your booth, since those are the two big ones that I'm hearing.
Actually, Paula, I have one. This is Patty from Wyvern.
Oh, hey, Patty.
Hi. One of, I think our challenges is getting the actual sale. We'll get people all interested. They're all excited. We'll follow up with emails, but then we don't actually get the sale.
Got it.
So I would say that that's another challenge that we face.
Okay. Yeah, there's always so much people so much material that we could cover. But yeah, how to close more sales. That's really what it's about. That's how you get the return on investment for the show. And they are so expensive. You have to make sales in order to justify the next show. So I am seeing number 2, number 5, and number 6 as the biggest responses. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started with that. And I appreciate your being forthcoming with all of that. That's really helpful. Do we want to do introductions? We've got a really small group today. I'm Paula Williams with ABCI. We help aviation companies sell more of their products and services. And we've got some amazing people on the line today. I just wanted to, I don't know that all of you know each other, and aviation is a small world. So if you want to take a minute to introduce yourself, now would be a fantastic time to do that. Dana, do you want to go first since you're first on the line?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Dana Knight. I'm product director for UTK Aviation. I manage the flight planning product that we sell and also our drone application for filing with the Lance. I'm actually a commercial pilot by formal training and a dispatcher, and basically I bleed jet fuel.
You bleed jet fuel. I bet your doctor's very concerned.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we're glad you're here, Dana, and thank you for that. Stella, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm a copywriter working with ABCI, so I do a lot of content articles and blog posts and such for ABCI and for our different clients.
An amazing job too. So thank you for that. And Trent, I think this is your first time hanging with us. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about Wyvern and what you do.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Paula. My name's Trent Corsia, VP Sales and Marketing of Wyvern, a audit consulting coaching type company. So essentially, our customer demographics are charter operators, charter brokers, drones, MROs, FBOs, and helicopters. And essentially, we're here to raise the flag for all those folks that can say, "Hey, we're safe," right? Well, it's one thing when you say it; it's different when you have a third party audit company that's able to then confirm, yes, they're safe. We also offer SMS. We offer SMS workshops, if a whole bunch of other things like that. So again, we're very much in that aviation safety space. And if we can help anybody, obviously, please let us know. Paula, thank you for the invitation, for patting me to be here. Obviously, trade show. It felt like the first 6 months of this year was all about all of these trade shows, and finally got through the gauntlet of that. So it's nice to now have time to be able to work on strategies and have these kind of conversations of what do we look like going in the future. So again, thank you for the invitation, Paula. I look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. We're glad you're here, Trent. And yeah, Wyvern is very prestigious and a very good partner for anybody who is looking for that. Alicia, I think this is your first time hanging with us also. If you'd like to introduce yourself, please do. It'd be great to hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, my name's Alicia. I work for Aerostar Training Services. I'm their business development manager. And you're right, this is my first interaction with you guys. I'm excited for this. We are looking at going to London for the Farnborough trade show. So this is great timing for us to kind of, shore up and get ready for that. All of the, options that you shared, I think are going to be super helpful for us. I'm also a pilot, almost at check ride for private pilot. So
congratulations. That changes your life, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. So love aviation and excited to be here.
Excellent. Glad you're here, Alicia. And Patty, did you have anything to add? I'd love to hear your voice as well.
So I'm Patty. I work with Trent for Wyvern. I've been with Wyvern for almost 9 years now, and we used to go to a whole bunch of trade shows, and then we had cut back due to spending, the cost of trade shows. So we started actively attending them very recently. And to Trent's point, we're trying to decide which ones are worthwhile going, how to also attract people to our booth, and how to actually close sales from all the leads that we do get.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, great. We're glad to have you. Of course, yeah, everything that we do revolves around the circle. Prospecting, approaching, holding patterns, sales, referrals, and testimonials. A trade show, if done correctly, can do all of those things. Most people, think of trade shows as only prospecting, but it is also a great opportunity to do approaches. It's a great opportunity to reconnect with people that maybe you've already approached, but is not ready to do business for whatever reason. They're in your not ready yet holding pattern. It's a great opportunity to close sales. We'll talk more about this as we get into it, but I think a lot of the sales that occur at trade shows are strategically timed for the publicity that happens at trade shows, and the actual transaction happened weeks or months ago, or at least the handshake happened weeks or months ago, and then they announce it at the trade show. But there are also sales to be had at trade shows and subsequent to the trade show. So in the 6 to 8 to 90 days after the trade show is kind of a critical period for sales. And then referrals and testimonials. We've actually had some pretty good success with seeing people recording testimonials in their booth, or people bringing people to your booth and introducing them and saying, this is who I use for marketing, or this is who I use for safety consulting, or this is who I use for training, and bringing people to your booth and saying, you have to work with these guys, and those are the best kinds of referrals because they're in person, and that can't happen that often anywhere else except where you've got a large concentration of existing and future customers in one room. So, that's our intention for this. This workshop is actually derived from one of our courses that people take several days or a couple of weeks to complete. But in today's workshop, we only have an hour, which is why I was asking, what should we prioritize? What should we talk about first so that we can do that? Okay. So what we've been advising people ever since COVID, the trade shows are, like I said, proliferating. They're also kind of fragmenting into smaller niches, and they're becoming more expensive because everybody has higher insurance costs, they have higher rent costs, they have higher costs of everything having to do with travel and so on. So what we're suggesting to all of our clients is to do fewer shows, perhaps, than they had planned. And, this isn't one size fits all advice, but if we were to make it a thumbnail sketch, do fewer shows, but do the heck out of every show that you commit to. And the reason for that is because if you're going to invest the money, then go all out and do all of the things. All of the preparation, all of the follow-up, all of the everything. And if you can't do that because of time or money, you're doing too many shows. So that's really where we're putting our emphasis is on the preparation and so on. Okay, so the worksheet that you have or the workbook that you have, does everybody have that? Everybody was able to print that? Or okay, good, excellent, thank you. Is actually from the longer course. And we aren't going to cover every bit of it today, but I wanted you to have it as a resource because I don't know what you need specifically, and we probably won't cover it today. So we wanted to make sure you at least had the printed materials. So we've got talking points for, if we get together to strategize your show, you're prepared and ready to go. Okay, so the first thing we need to decide is, what is our goal? And for a lot of people, the assumption is the goal is new prospects and sales. But that's not the only goal of trade shows. Sometimes you'll have a primary and a secondary goal. The one thing you don't want to do is have too many, because if you chase 5 rabbits, you're not going to catch any rabbits at all. But, do you want to introduce or launch a new company, product, or service? Do you want to sell an existing product or service? And is there one particular product or service that is the most profitable for you or the most relevant to this particular crowd? And this could go into your decision of which show should we exhibit at, because what are our sales goals for the year? Which of the shows are going to have the demographics of people that are going to help us meet those goals? So if your goal for the year, Alicia, it might be the professional, you kind of got a natural division between your products for professional pilots and your products for new pilots or your training programs.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got kind of a natural division there. If you tried to do both at one show, I don't know that you would do as well as if you picked one and focused on it.
Yeah, agreed.
What's feeling about Farnborough? Is that more of a professional pilot environment or more of a elementary new pilot environment?
No, I think it's going to be more professional. I think it's going to attract a lot of obviously the European grouping, which, that's a lot different than shows in the US. We're right next to Sun and Fun, which is the second largest show in the US. And that's mostly GA.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. But I think that you're right. I think that this is great. So I don't want to take too much time here.
Okay. No, but I think that's a great example. Farnborough is probably a great venue for one objective, and that would be to sell your professional pilot programs, especially in a B2B environment, because the airlines are there, and others. So that would be a great environment to focus on B2B sales of your professional pilot products and maybe get contracts with airlines and, do those really large sales. And then Sun and Fun is the opposite. That would be where you get the people who are just getting started and they bring their teenagers to your booth and, tell them about how cool it is to be a pilot and, all of those things.
Yeah, and they bring the kids and stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Great. Patty, Trent, do you have any thoughts about any particular show that you would have a particular objective for? Or I don't know if you wanted to share an example or if you have any thoughts about that. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I do mean to put you on the spot. I think this is much more educational if we add a little pressure to the situation.
I want to be the one only speaking for Wyvern, so I want Patty to be able to talk too.
Absolutely.
I know for us, our biggest one is now going to be NBA base in Las Vegas. And the nice thing is that 4 months from now. So we've got time to strategize. But Patty, would you like to say anything?
Sure. One of our, I guess, most successful shows has been schedulers and dispatchers because previously our company demographics was operators, and we have a software platform for vetting charter flights. So the operators join as a member, they put all their information in the software, and they can run what's called a pass report, which is like a report card that lets the end user know if this flight is safe so they can make an educated decision. So working with the schedulers and the dispatchers who actually book those flights has been successful in the past. But we're branching out into other areas, as Trent mentioned. So going to base in Las Vegas should be a good show because you have not only operators, but other aviation professionals there.
Right.
And we have SMS software that's applicable to any industry, not only aviation. So we're trying to expand and reach out.
Right, exactly. So I think that's excellent. And it's not an accident that we have this workshop scheduled 4 months before NBA because that is about the right amount of time to begin planning the show. And so I guess my advice would be pick one primary objective. You can have others, but if you have one primary objective for base, that's in line with your sales goals for the year and with the products that you are introducing or the products that are the most profitable for you, pick one objective to introduce a new product or to sell an existing product or whatever that is. And then the other things can be also rounds because everybody that you bring into your conversations is an opportunity who may be off of that primary objective, but having that primary objective and being really clear about it will help focus your presence and make sure that everybody who goes is really super clear on what needs to be done and all your materials are in line and it's all ready to go. Dana, did you want to add anything from ETT? Is there any show that's coming up that maybe you want to discuss an objective for? Or?
Yeah, well, I mean, our objective always has been anyway, that just get sales for the existing product, right? So we're in with that aircraft IT group to do the first ones in Florida in September.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are always really good shows for us. Now, I actually, because of the expansion I'm trying to do with flight planning system into Europe, they actually have a show in Europe that takes place the first week of December, and it's sold out already. I'm on a wait list, and I know the guy pretty well. He goes, "Well, unfortunately, you're number 5." So,
okay.
yeah, I mean, we're really, really tactical about the shows that we do. There's a couple that we've dropped just because it's not worth the juice isn't worth the squeeze, basically, right? So
Yeah.
we bail on a couple of them.
Right, exactly. So, if your goal is sales, and most of us, I think that's the case, then you've got a 3-step process. Thing number 1, attract the right people. Either before the show, during the show, after the show, however you can do it. Ideally before the show, by inviting them to your booth, to come to your booth for a specific reason. Let's do a consultation. Let's enter a drawing. Let's do a trivia quiz. Let's have a presentation. Let's have a magician. Let's play golf. Whatever you're doing in your booth. Here is the reason you should visit us at the show. Number 2 is to get them involved with your product. So if that's software, hand them some dummy software on an iPad. Watch them carefully so they don't run off with your iPad. But get your product into their hands if you can. Some hands-on activity or intellectual exercise. So those trivia pub night kind of quizzes. Those are always fun because then you can give prizes and actually get them involved with the intellectual exercise involved with your product or the problem that you solve with your product. And goal number 3 is get permission to contact them later. So set the hook. We have a report that we can send you about this topic. Don't give it to them at the show because it will end up in a trash can when they're carrying too much stuff, or it's going to end up in their hotel room after the show. You wouldn't believe the amount of stuff that gets left in hotel rooms, so that's why I always recommend don't give people swag at shows. Send them a fabulous package after the show if they are qualified and if they meet your criteria, or if they answer your trivia questions, or if they do something to earn it, right? Because then they value it more and you value it more, and that actually gets to their house and they don't have to carry it or check it in their baggage or whatever. Good so far? All right, cool. Okay, so we do have a checklist before the show in terms of, demographics. One of the things that I like to look at is your top 10, and I use that list for a lot of different things. If you've got a top 10 list of customers for a particular product or service, and that is your objective for the show, are your top 10 most wanted customers going to be at that show or likely to be at that show? And you can find that out by asking them, or if you get a pre-show some of them will send you, they used to do this a lot more, now they make you pay for it, a list of registered attendees. So if you can get hold of that and you find your 10 most wanted on that list, then that is absolutely a show that you should do. And that kind of thing. Also, your most feared competitors, maybe, or your most valued partners, whatever. If they're going, you should go. If they're not going, then maybe that's one that you should consider, whether or not the juice is worth the squeeze, as Dana said. Okay. So these are other things you should be doing, at least 90 days before the show. Get the schedule if you can. Sometimes to research the demographics, you have to get last year's registered attendees list or last year's exhibitors list in order to figure this out, because you don't have the information for this year's show yet, but at least you can get a start on that. Right. So, reserve your booth space, submit applications for speaking. This is really important and a very overlooked opportunity. You can't pitch your product usually at these things, but you can get scheduled to speak at an education session. And then that does two things for you. One, you get a couple of extra badges usually that, you can get more people into the show to see you speak. And that saves people a couple $100 often with some of these shows. So that's a wonderful thing. And then the second thing is that it positions you as a speaker. So, your authority is different. Your presence is different at that show. If you have up on your wall in your booth, I'll be speaking on Thursday in this room on this topic, they see you differently than just a vendor, because then you become an expert on that topic.
So Paula, one of the things that the aircraft commerce people do is they give you an opportunity to have a client present.
Yeah.
And you're up there with them. Now, you can't get too salesy about the whole thing, right? So they look at it and approve the whole thing. But I mean, we did that with my previous employer at a trade show in Europe. We did a customer presentation. We have people like 5 deep at the booth after that, because it just makes so much difference when a customer is up there talking about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I've actually had people at shows record testimonials, because they have a videographer there and everything. And so, people can stop by your booth and say, hey, would you mind saying a few words about our product? And those are gold, because it's genuine. It is somebody else talking about your product, and all of those things. So yeah, no, that's a great opportunity. I wish more shows would do that, let somebody else talk about you. One of the things that we enjoy doing, and we always do at NBAA, is we do a breakfast the first morning. And the reason we do that is because it's Las Vegas. So nobody, there's so much competition for dinners and parties and, other things like that. And so many demands on people's time after 5 that we decided to do a breakfast, before the first morning of the show. So everybody is still sober. Everybody is still, not exhausted and everything else. And it's a really good kickoff, warm, fuzzy, friendly. We invite our current clients and, anybody else that wants to come the first day of NBAA to breakfast on Tuesday. And, so that's a really good opportunity for us. Also, breakfast is less expensive than dinner. Especially because there's usually not alcohol involved, and it's just less expensive, less hassle, more casual, etc. So I really like doing breakfast events, with clients and for clients. Okay. And then also custom supplies or novelties, anything you want to have in your booth. Food is always good. I don't recommend going too heavy on the swag for the reasons we talked about. People will just take your stuff and keep walking. And then it'll end up in a hotel room just because they make a competitive sport out of swag collections. It's one of the things that happens at these shows. Okay. And then, yeah, also consider ways to make your appearance hybrid. So, could you live cast from the show? Can you record things with clients? Can you record from the booth? Can you take pictures of, something that's going on? And if you plan this ahead of time, you can book a videographer, whatever you need to do, plan your booth so that you've got the space and the lighting and the sound and everything else ready to go. So yeah, you really can't start too early. And I know we've spent half the time on preparation, and that is not a mistake. There's a lot that goes into preparation. If you do that right, a lot of the other things become a whole lot easier. So Patty, to your question about, making sales, if you have done this with your sales process in mind. So you've got your top 10 most wanted customers are going to be at the show. You are planning the sales process for how are we going to get them to come to our booth? How are we going to attract these 10 people? That'll work for a larger number. But if you are kind of using them as your stalking horse, as these are the people that we're designing the sales process for, then it will work a lot better because you're being more specific and more particular to those 10 people. How do we get them to our booth? And then what happens after that? And what happens after that? And what happens after that? So what do we want from them at our booth? We want them to participate with our product. We want to put it in their hands. As a result of this trade show, we want to book a consultation with them so that we can do a custom presentation for them and show them this is how we solve your biggest problem. So as a result of the show, you have a booked consultation. And then how does your sales process proceed from that consultation? You send them a package in the mail, you do X, Y, or Z, whatever the steps are, you've got those already figured out, and you've already got those packages ready to mail after the show. You've got everything ready to go. So if you do the preparation correctly, all of the rest of these things work 1,000 times better. Cool. All right. So that's the far, I guess, advanced early warning preparation. And then, as you get closer to the show, 60 days, 30 days, etc. I'm not going to go into as much detail on these because every show is different. Every show has different guidelines. The book that we're reading this month, Trade Show 411, has a really good chapter about the exhibitor guidelines from the trade show. You download that becomes your Bible for the next 60 days. You don't want to miss anything. You don't want to miss any deadlines. You don't want to end up paying extra for something because you didn't request it or whatever. So, and it's really good to appoint somebody as the project manager for the show, and their job is to follow the guidelines in the exhibitor guidelines. It's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it, and it's one of those things.
And I think a big thing is if you're targeted, you can also include that in your email series before the show, inviting them to stop by and see you, or we're going to be highlighting our new product, or whatever your primary goal is. You can then target that whole email invitation reminder, join us series to that goal.
Absolutely. So yeah, in 60 days prior to the show, you can start sending those printed invitations and email invitations and social media invitations and DMs and everything else to your top 10 most wanted customers. So you give them no excuse for not knowing that you're going to be there, and all of that. So excellent point, Stella. And Stella is excellent at writing invitation sequences and follow-up sequences as well. So that's a piece that is often overlooked and very cheap and very effective as well. Okay, so that's 60 days, 30 days before the show. Yeah, all of the shipping, all of the other things. We're not going to go into a whole lot of detail here because it's all very different from the rest of these things. But one thing I did want to draw your attention to is an FAQ document. It's always good to have one of these, but it's also good to do a specific one for this show. What's going on in the news these days that people are going to ask us about? What is the Alicia, what is going on with all of these layoffs with pilots? Is this something I should be worried about? It could be framed as good for you if you thought about it ahead of time. So, think about.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on? What are people likely to ask you? Create a FAQ document. And then, are you guys going to have a bunch of people in your booth or,
I think it'll be 2 to 3. So I think that's great, right? Because we can have it so that, I mean, I think we all have different strengths too, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm a pilot, but this other person is more of a, she's more sales all like all her life, right? So, and then of course, Deidre, she's everything.
Right?
Yeah. And like heavy on regs, knows regs, like, the back of her hand kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I think that's great because we can all like refer to it if not our strength.
Right.
Exactly.
We've actually had people play a card game, where they'll do the question on one side, the answer on the other, and they will drill each other before the show, on the plane on the way to the show, with an FAQ, so that they know really easily. And this builds your confidence. This makes it not sound defensive. If there's something in the news or something that you need to address or anything else, it's really good to have those FAQs down. And then, of course, people are going to ask you something that's left field.
Right. Wait, I wasn't prepared for that.
Right.
Yeah. I think the other thing too, Paula, objections, right? Like, so common objections, but it doesn't necessarily have to be written that way, right? So exactly what you're saying, just coming from a perspective of what maybe a common objection would be, but we would be prepared for saying that ahead of time, essentially.
Exactly. That's absolutely correct. So, yeah. And, those card games, role playing, there's a lot of things that you can do with your sales team to make them feel really, really comfortable and really confident going into that trade show so that they're not beaten up and worn down on day one, and I think that's part of the problem with the other client that I mentioned is she wasn't prepared, and she went into a trade show not expecting all of the tough barrage, of stuff that does happen. And, it is a very direct industry. I guess all of you have been in this industry for long enough to know people ask very direct questions and should, and things like that. So yeah, role playing, card games, anything you can do to help your booth personnel be up, energetic, confident, ready for anything, and feeling really good before the show. And then you start your countdown on social media or your blog or whatever. Hey, we're going to be in Singapore in 6 days. It's going to be really cool. What are some of the things we should see while we're there? Outside, doing some other tie-ins with the destination and other things like that. So, those are kind of fun. The top 10 things we should eat while we're in London. That would be.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, absolutely. There is food in England. Mostly tea and crumpets, but there is food in England. So,
don't forget the fish and chips.
And the fish and chips, right?
Yeah, that's something that I've heard is signature that I should try.
Right.
My daughter and I were there last month, and we recommend the Thai and the Indian food.
Really? Okay. All right. I'll pass that along to the team as well. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Trent.
There's the joke that, they colonized the rest of the world because there is no food in England.
Oh, I've never heard that. Okay.
Well, that's the politically incorrect joke, but we'll.
Sure. I definitely have heard about their beer.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, definitely. Right.
Okay.
So you can have some fun with this, in your social media.
Sure. That's cool.
It's our first time to whatever destination it is. What are some things we should be doing while we're there. Great way to encourage engagement and also draw attention to the fact that you're going to be there.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that is before the show. During the show, put your phone away, right? We have a saying, eyes up while you're at the show. You do not look down at your phone. You want to take lots of pictures and take lots of video and maybe do notes with your voice memo feature, but otherwise your phone should be in your pocket. The worst thing in the world is to spend a ton of money to be at a show and then to spend the whole time hunched over your laptop or your iPad or your phone, and people don't feel like they can approach you because you're busy doing something, when really all you're doing is checking your email or doing whatever because you feel awkward because you're at a show and you're not great at, I'm not great at interacting with a, few thousand people I don't know. So it's terrifying, if you're an introvert. So, being super prepared and being open and ready and just practicing, standing there and smiling can be really, really hard. That's another reason for the role playing as well. If you have time, leave your teammate at your booth and then go visit with some of your existing customers and drop by their booth, say hello, drop off some food if you brought food or whatever, make friends and influence people and so on. If you're doing a speaking gig or a press conference, you want to allow time afterwards to sit down with a prospect that comes up to you. There's always that one person that may end up being your best customer ever. That's how we got one of our best customers ever was, from a speaking gig. And we didn't see it coming. It was completely out of left field, and it resulted as a result of that. So you want to make sure you allow for those opportunities and serendipities and things. You can always go to the education sessions. If you ask a good question while you're in one of those information sessions, that can be just as good as speaking, because people will remember, oh, that's the guy that knew about this or, had the question about that. And, so those are sometimes good opportunities, and people will come up to you after you ask the question and say, tell me more about this or that situation or scenario. Networking events and pictures and video, you can never take too many pictures or video.
Hey, Paul, I tell you, one of the interesting things that I've found over the past couple shows is that you'll ask people for, they'll come up, you talk to them, do you have a card? No, I don't have a card. So yeah, there's a lot of people that do. So, I mean, it's not a bad idea to have like little cards that people can fill out with their contact information, so they can't just slip away from it.
Yeah. And when we do like a trivia quiz or something like that, it's great to have little forms that they can fill out, at least their name and their phone number. You can always do a little bit of internet sleuthing after the fact and find out who they are and who they work for and all those things. But yeah, at least have something that they can write on. That's an excellent point. And kids these days, they think that they can just zap everything. So they don't have these little pieces of paper because they're arcane and silly. But I love business cards. I still collect them. I think they're fun.
Another important thing not on here, but it's more to the personal side.
Yeah.
Stay hydrated, stay, well nourished, get your rest. It's not a 24/7 marathon.
Yeah. Keep some kind bars in your bag. This food is always terrible. It's always like horrifying hot dogs or something awful. So yeah, make sure you've got snacks and water and everything else so that you're feeling good, and steal the apples from the hotel breakfast. Bring those with you.
Don't get drunk at the cocktail reception.
Oh my God.
Yeah, nothing worse than having a hangover or not feeling well when you have to be on. Whether you're speaking or in your booth or whatever, it's like, oh, I've got a headache. What do you want?
You get away from me.
Yeah, exactly. So take care of yourself as well as the people who come to see you.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And that goes into preparation. Just make sure you've got a bag of snacks and treats and water and everything else. And that is also excellent for networking, because you're going to find that somebody's dying of hunger or thirst or whatever. And if you can offer them a snack or a bottle of water or a granola bar or something like that, you can make a friend that way pretty easily. Kind of like when you're hiking, you always take a backpack, not for you but because you're going to run into somebody who's just gashed themselves and needs some help. It's an unfortunate way of looking at things, but it's also a good way to make friends. Okay. First business day after the show. I know this is, and a lot of people actually do this in the airport while they're waiting for their plane after the show, is to go through their list of cards and, just there's some software, or you can get an assistant or, get somebody on Fiverr or whatever to enter your leads into your CRM. Just, take pictures of the cards and send it to them. Make sure you do that right away. I have a right pocket, left pocket system. So, cards that go in my right pocket are ones that need to be followed up on right away. Ones in my left pocket are people that can just go into our holding pattern or a regular holding pattern. Everybody has their system. Some people write on cards or fold them. You want to make sure you don't let anybody see you do that, because that could be perceived as disrespectful in some cultures and things. But yeah, the right pocket, left pocket thing seems to work really well for me. Everybody has their own thing. I have some stationery that's like half sheet stationery. So I don't have to write a ton. I don't have to write big, long thank you notes. I just, there's not enough room. So I just write something really quick, fold it over and send it. So I bring my stationery and my envelopes and have stamps on everything all ready to go. Sending thank you notes to the people that visited the booth. Picking up the phone and talking to people. There's no substitute for that. And then whatever follow-up program you planned before the show started, you hit begin, on your MailChimp or your whatever CRM you have. Or you have those scheduled to go out the day after the show saying, thank you for visiting us. We're looking forward to seeing you at your consultation or whatever it is. And that's next step in the process. Okay. We do have an entire workshop on a holding pattern. What is a holding pattern? Why do we need one? What goes into it, and so on. But that's basically for the people who are not ready yet. So, your hot prospects, of course, you just execute your sales process, whatever that is. Do your consultations, follow up with proposals, follow up with whatever you follow up with, whatever that is. Warm prospects, it's good to have a holding pattern that is at least semi-automated, so that they're getting newsletters, they're getting phone calls, they're getting birthday cards, they're getting whatever it is that's in your holding pattern, so that they stay warm until they are ready to make a purchase. We like to have people hear from us weekly or at least monthly. We've got a podcast, that's a big part of our holding pattern. You may have a newsletter, you may have a book that you can send people, as part of that, or a prospectus, or, a information package, something along those lines. I love to send people right after a show a nice big box, especially if they're a qualified prospect, either now or sometime in the future, that has like a coffee mug and a little packet of coffee and some cookies and all the tchotchkes and other things that we did not spend money on at the show. And I spend money on them after the show. I find a good prospect, I send them a package. Maybe with a book. I love books. We talked about this. Here's a book that would be really helpful to your situation, and so on. But with one of those, again, half sheets of handwritten notes, from my little pile of stationery. If you already have like a newsletter or something like that, then you can just kind of fold them into that process. So that makes it a lot easier. If not, this is a really good time to do that. I always, I take my little pile of cards out of my pocket, and while I'm in the airport, one of the things that I do is follow them on LinkedIn. In addition to writing them a thank you note, because LinkedIn is my drug of choice for social media, and say, hey, it was great meeting you at NBAA. Let's keep in touch about X, Y, or Z, whatever we talked about. Or if you didn't really talk about anything, if they just gave you a card, at least you're making that contact right away. And then while they remember your face. Because everybody's going to forget. I'll get amnesia the next day. They go back to their real life, and then there was the show, and then there's real life, and never two shall meet because they don't want to think about it because it was a traumatic experience because they got drunk on their set.
I have a question for you guys that
Okay.
friends. How do you guys feel about like LinkedIn and we're talking about kind of networking at the show and cards and leave behinds. I love all this.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Yeah. So just wanted to hear if you don't mind sharing.
Sharing the process for LinkedIn or
no. How you guys feel about it? Have you seen success with it in terms of maybe instead of a card and a card, a business card, right?
Yeah.
As far as like building connections, because just like what you're talking about, they like forget about you, right? But you capture their information that way. So just wanted to hear if
right.
Veterans, that's all.
I love both. I love the cards, and then I also love LinkedIn.
Okay.
Because the card actually will help me anchor with them. I like for them to have my card, and I like for me to have their card. And then, my process is to use the cards to get to their LinkedIn. Some people will actually even put a QR code to their website or their LinkedIn on their card. And then once I've connected with somebody on LinkedIn, I put them in our holding pattern. So they're getting our next episode of our podcast.
Okay.
They're getting a box from me if they sound like they're a really qualified client. And things. Or you can, I have a list of people that I like to stalk on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So, once a week or so,
Okay.
Friday, I call it Follow Friday. I will go through the list of people that I'm following, my top 10 most wanted customers, or anybody that I've met that week, and look at what they've posted maybe in the past or whatever, make a comment or something along those lines, just so that it takes that relationship from one dimension into another.
Okay.
So, they were your friend from the show because you gave them a bottle of water, and then now they're your friend on LinkedIn because they know you because you've had a conversation in this dimension.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And it makes you two-dimensional. Three-dimensional is even better, if you've had a meal with them or something like that. But, we'll take what we can get these days. The more dimensions, the better. Success factors, persistence. How long should you chase people? The kind of gauche saying is till they buy or till they die. Prospect, or until they tell you not to. If they unsubscribe, okay, that's they're off the table. And that's totally fine. You just replace them on your top 10 list with somebody else and, pursue that person. And never take it personally. I think, we just like to think like we are the big dog in the room, the big friendly dog. So, if we've got kids crawling all over us or whatever and so forth, we can get up and walk away and not take anything personally, not ever get upset, because we're big enough to take it. And, that's the attitude that I like to project at a show. Big enough you don't want to mess with me, but big enough that I can take it if you want to give me a little bit of crap or ask me a tough question or, whatever. So energy is really, really important. After action report, and I know we're just about out of time, there is a, it's not in here, but I need to add it. And we did this for our, one of our campaigns. If you were calculating the cost of a campaign, and it works for trade shows as well, basically you add up all of your expenses. You go either 90 or 180 days out, depending on the length of your sales cycle. And there is a mathematical equation that you can do to say, did we make or lose money on this campaign? And I'll send that to you after the fact once I find it. I need to add it to this workbook because I think it's really helpful to, it's not perfect because there's always a lot more expenses than you expect. And there's also, you don't know if the trade show is a deciding factor. If you've been talking to somebody for 5 years and then they finally decide to buy from you after the show, that's ambiguous in terms of how impactful is that. Yep. And then you just continue your holding pattern forever. Continue your sales process until they either buy or don't. in which case you either take them off or put them in your holding pattern if they're qualified at some point in the future. So, yeah, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. Right. So, and then after you've done the show, then you want to think about it. Should we do this again? Was this a good show? Did we make money? Did we lose money? Was it a good experience for everybody? Should we find a better opportunity? What should we do differently next year? Let's do a 10 by 10 instead of a 20 by 20. Let's do, whatever it is that you need to do to make the math come out right, and so on. Okay. So if you are working with us, like Alicia and Dana and so on, you can use your office hours for any of these tasks. We're happy to help you analyze the best shows for your demographic, brainstorm objectives and themes, invitation ideas, etc. Do your social media posts, etc. And so on. One thing I do recommend is personal branding before you go to a show, so then you feel good about your LinkedIn profile. It's not like 5 years old and talking about a job you don't have anymore or whatever. And things like that. So personal branding, look over your checklists and things like that. That's something we can do for you as well. Have proposals ready to go because people, you're going to be asked for them. Have some dummies ready to go with some blanks that you can fill in. Have your press releases ready to go. All of that stuff is things that we can help you with for trade shows. Yeah. Cool. So that's pretty much it. Were there any other questions or comments or anything else that anybody wants to share? Did anybody learn anything new, or did you already know this already?
No, you always learn something new.
I know I do too every time we do this.
I mean, I'm like I said, I'm the newbie. Now this is great. So, okay. I mean, naturally, I think partially personality, partially business, partially just being, I don't know, in the industry. You do some of this naturally, right? But having it kind of all put down for you, like how you have this is like amazing. Because you can it's like you're saying, you prepare before and then it's all like smooth sailing. So if you have all of this, like, you prepared for us.
Yeah.
I mean, this is success right here. So 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I really think that preparation is 80% of the chances of success. If you only look at one page, it's basically you set your goals correctly, and then 90 days before the show, if you've done all of those things, you're 80% of the way there, and the whole rest of it becomes a lot less stressful.
Sure.
Not that a trade show is ever not stressful, but it just goes a whole lot better. And to Stella's point, do not overlook bottles of water and snacks.
Okay.
Critical.
Right. Exactly. That's 80% right there. If you've got your snacks, done your preparation ahead of time, all you have to do is show up and eat your snacks and project and be
and
happy.
talk.
And talk. Right.
And talk.